So, you've played before? Once or twice. I just kind of know the rules. The air between us feels a little awkward. She's still pretty nervous, understandably, given that we're in public. Eventually the silence becomes too much even for Hanako and she begins to quietly stammer. Who'll break? I think for a moment before reaching into my pocket and drawing a coin. I'll take heads, your tails. After a nod of agreement from Hanako, I flick the coin up in the air, catch it and flip it over onto the back of my left hand. Looks like it's you that gets to break. Hanako nods again before taking up her position at the end of the table. She's not usually this quiet around me, but I'm not wholly sure if it's because of the tidbit of information about her past that slipped out moments ago. The cue comes back in the practiced gesture before smacking dead centre of the cue ball with a thud. The white ball stakes across the smooth green expanse before smashing into the carefully arranged balls at the other end. Balls skitter across the table at high speed. The break was good, with the balls being nicely distributed around the table, my eyes already flicking from one to another to pick out the easiest candidates to pocket. Hanako retreats from the side and I take my shot. Well done. It's only after Hanako says this that I realise the ball I was shooting at was sunk. I look at her and notice a small smile on her face. It's nice how playing games seems to loosen her up a little. Guess I'm stripes then. I take a step back and let her take the next shot, but she doesn't advance to the table, rather she looks down a little and rubs her arm. By now I can identify this as one of her gestures that means she wants to say something but isn't sure enough of herself to do it. What's up? It's just you had a nice smile. Do you like playing this? I sigh and lean back against the table. I like playing, yeah. I think I was smiling because it's really nostalgic though. Hanako tilts her head quizzically. Me and my friends used to play pool in the game centres near where we lived pretty often, and at night too. Wouldn't your parents? My parents both work, so they didn't mind me not being in the house. I stayed on top of my schoolwork pretty easily as well, so there was plenty of room to do other stuff at night. Our conversation dies down with Hanako timidly getting the better of her timidity. In response, I get off the table and let her take her turn shooting. There aren't many solids in easy positions, so Hanako bends down and takes a while to line herself up properly. Hanako's expression is the same as when we play chess, a relaxed but focused concentration. Athletes sometimes talking about getting in a zone where nothing unnecessary enters their mind, and I wonder if that's something she can do. Her posture is good, better than mine to be sure. It's very close to a textbook method of playing, whereas I tend to contort myself into whatever position I feel is most natural for the shot I'm playing. She lines up the cue comes back and she does a couple of practice movements to make sure she's lined up correctly. Hanako takes games so seriously. It's the only real hobby I know she has, outside of reading. It feels good to be able to share this kind of experience with her. She takes the shot after careful consideration and the cue ball zooms off towards the ball sitting at a slightly awkward angle near a corner. Hanako's careful preparation pays off as the cue ball hits and sends the ball rolling towards the corner pocket. For a moment it looks like it'll stop just on the lip of the hole, but eventually tilts just enough to drop in. Man, that was a hard shot. If you can pull that off, I don't think I have much hope. I'm not that good. It's not just the shot though. Even when lining it up, you look really serious. You're like this with chess too. The praise makes her a little flustered. She sets the cue against the table stand and stands, turning to me. I just like those kind of things. Her fingers are twisted and turning tightly. When I was in the orphanage, I just kept doing things I liked before. If I'd played games with the others, that was enough for the helpers there, so I never thought about it that way. Staff at an orphanage would naturally want to have everyone socialised at least a little. If it's okay for me to ask, what is it like for you at the orphanage? Why do you want to know? I've touched a nerve, but the fact that she responded at all shows there's at least a chance she'll answer my question. Before she'll likely would have shrunk away from it without a word. I'll tell you, but... Could you tell me who Iwanako is? Iwanako? Oh, the letter. I wonder how long she's been waiting for the right opportunity to ask me this. I'm surprised, but don't hesitate. Sharing information is naturally a matter of give and take. She's someone I used to like. Her nervousness subsided, at least for the first time it took to ask. Her curiosity is getting the better of her, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable to be questioned on this of all matters. There's no way I could spill out all my feelings about Iwanako here. I don't even know myself what my feelings regarding her are, even after talking to Yuko earlier, and I want to avoid the subject around Hanako. Hanako doesn't look overly satisfied with the awkward ending to the discussion, but thinks better of continuing it. She was only just managing to ask me in the first place without knowing that I wouldn't want to talk about it. I move to finally take my own shot. The lack of talking between us is filled by the chatter of other patrons and the band at the other end of the club. Spying a shot that doesn't look too difficult, I try and shoot for it. The cue ball taps the ball and the trajectory is about right, but I put too much power. It grazes the corner of the hole and moves off to the side, just skirting the pocket. I grit my teeth a little. I was pretty good at this game, and it's frustrating to have deteriorated so much. I step back and let Hanako take her turn, glancing towards the counter where Lily and Akira are sitting. They're talking busily between themselves, and seem to be having a good time. I turn back to Hanako as she takes her shot. With the same face as before, she lines herself up and sharply pushes the cue. Just as before, she sinks the ball she was aiming for. It drops into the side pocket more cleanly than her last though. It looks as if she's getting a bit more into the groove of the game. Nicely done. She hesitates for a moment and begins to address me without turning her head. The orphanage was nice. It felt a bit like Yamaku does, and the staff were really kind. But as the years went on, I realised something. I was different. It feels strange to hear her speaking so candidly about herself. She's audibly forcing the words out. It reminds me of when she insisted she tell me about the fire. Hanako must feel that she has to tell me of such things, if I'm willing to tell her about my own past. Her grip on the cue tightens as she continues to speak. Most of the children there were up for adoption, just like I was, but unlike me, they gradually left, one by one. By the time I went to Yamaku, I was among the oldest children there. For a while, I helped with some of the younger children, but eventually... I lay a hand on her shoulder. She's forcing herself by now. It's okay. She looks mildly surprised for a moment, but then nods before setting down her cue and turning towards me. Do you really think so? Yeah, I think so. Even while Lily's away, I'll be around to protect you, right? Hanako looks at me for a long time and I'm taken a bit off guard. Her expression hasn't changed from before, still looking somewhat maudlin, and silences between us aren't unusual. I think it's the fact that she's holding such prolonged eye contact that makes us feel a little bit odd. It feels as if she's judging me. It's a very strange, vaguely uncomfortable feeling. Hanako? I understand, thank you. She smiles and looks away a little, but it feels stilted. Hanako is very good at faking emotions, and this is no exception. I move to the table and take my turn to try and distract myself, but it doesn't seem to work. Does she think I'm not up to the task of helping her? Is she disappointed? I'm probably overthinking this. While her silences are just an accepted fact of life by now, sometimes I do wish she'd speak more. With a thud, I send the white sphere careering down the table into my target. Hanako sees what's happening just as I do. The ball hits hard with the striped ball I'd intended to sink veering off towards the 8 ball. Sure enough, as both Hanako and I look on and bite our lips, they connect and the black ball rolls leisurely into a corner pocket. All I can do is sigh. It looks like Hanako is smiling again though, so maybe it wasn't for naught. That was an awful shot. You win. He seems I'm getting pretty rusty after all this time. Hanako bends down and begins to shoot the remaining balls into the closet pockets. I almost ask if we could play another game, but a quick check of my watch confirms that the night is getting pretty late. Lily and Akira appear to be still drinking at the counter. Seems like we'll have to drag them away. Hisao? I turn back to Hanako, who's still looking over the pool table shooting balls. Her voice sounds different from before. I'm here for you as well. Ah, I suddenly feel myself blushing. It's only natural that she'd respond this way, given what I said earlier, but it's still a shock to actually hear it. Just what is my relationship with this girl? I want to protect her, to make her happy. I'm not really sure that it's something like love, but I don't think these are the same kind of feelings I have for Lily either. I feel sorry for her, having gone through so much in her life. Her parents died in a house fire, and she lived in an orphanage for much of her childhood. I can't even imagine that kind of life. But it feels like there's little I can do for her, especially now that Lily is going to be leaving the country. Hanako and I finish tidying up the table and cues, and pick up Lily and Akira on our way out of the club. It feels like something changed between Hanako and me. I can't quite place what it is, but Hanako is acting differently now. I feel like we're further apart, if anything. So, you enjoy yourselves? Hanako and I both nod to agree. The game was good and we both did learn more about each other, so it's an honest answer. Lily appears to be a little distracted. Worried about the trip, Lily? She pauses before sighing and smiling weakly. A little. It means quite a bit. The comment earns her a clap on the shoulder from her sister. Hanako smiles back too. You'll be okay, Lily. I hope you can enjoy your time over there. Thank you, Hanako. I'll try to. It will be nice to be back with my family. After all, no matter how brief a time it may be. With that, the four of us begin to walk to the car park where Akira's car is. We continue to talk between ourselves, but it's mostly just small talk. Right then, are you taking the bus, Lily? Lily motions to a large suitcase standing beside her. I'll have to take this with me, so I've booked a taxi. It'll meet us at the school gates in about 5 minutes. Ah, I see. Lily reaches down and feels out the handle of her suitcase. Its weight causes her some difficulty, so I quickly offer to take it myself. That is awfully kind of you, Hisao. She has no qualms about accepting, and I end up picking it up. It's not what I'd call light, but it's not exactly heavy either. I don't think I'll have too much trouble carrying it. Well, thank you then. We should hurry though. If the taxi leaves, then it will take quite a while to book a new one. Are you ready, Hanako? Yeah, let's go. We rush to the gate as fast as we can, only to find that the taxi has yet to arrive. Well, nothing like a bit of exercise in the morning. The nurse told me that I should be doing that. I think he probably had other things in mind, Hisao, and probably with more regularity. Do you intend to be helping people with their luggage every day? I guess not. Looks like we've got a bit of a wait anyway. How long should we wait for the taxi before calling them again? I would say another 10 minutes, but they've never let me down before. There's probably just a little traffic. Okay then. So, how long is the flight to Scotland? About 16 hours if I remember correctly. It's a bit hard to tell with the changing time zones. So long. It's now that I realise Hanako's been unusually quiet, even for her. She doesn't handle stress very well, so she's looking really uptight. Yeah, I can't imagine being on a plane for that long. I've only ever flown it on a short family holiday up north. So, it really is quite hard to fathom. If Hanako spent so much of her childhood in an orphanage, she's probably travelled very little, let alone flown. It's not too bad. I'll spend most of it either asleep or catching up on my English. I hardly use that here, so I need to re-familiarise myself with it a little. Will your accent be a problem? I wouldn't worry about that too much. It may be an issue initially, but I should be fine once they get used to it. We all move to sit down on a small bench beside the school gate in silence. Strangely enough, even though I know Lily is going away, I can't think of anything to say to her. Lily is a reliable person, so it might be because she isn't one that I'm thinking of most. Lily might not be able to see it, but Hanako's chewing her fingernails nervously. I move to talk to her, but can hear an engine straining up the hill before I get the chance. I think the taxi's on its way. Well spotted, Hisao. I only just heard it as well. A small wave of pride washes over me. To have noticed something at the same time as Lily must mean that I've become more aware of my surroundings. Anyway, we won't have to call the taxi company, nor worry about missing Lily's train. Once the taxi stops where we're standing, the driver rolls down the window and leans over. After confirming that, yes, Lily is the same Lily Satu that broke the chip, we sort out her luggage. The driver opens the trunk of the taxi and takes Lily's suitcase, with Lily climbing into the back seat as he loads into the trunk and slams it shut. Pull a boot. After getting back into his seat and shutting the doors, he waits for us to say our farewells. Have a safe trip, Lily. Take care of yourself. Hanako looks understandably downcast, and that much is obvious even in her voice. Of course I will. I'll be back before long, don't worry. There'll still be another person for you too, won't there, Hisao? Yeah, of course. I turn and smile to Hanako, putting my hand on her shoulder. She only manages to keep eye contact with me for a couple of seconds, her cheeks red all the while before turning back to Lily. See you, Lily. Goodbye. Lily gives her farewells to the both of us with a fair measure of reluctance. Without further ado, the driver starts the engine once more, and they begin their journey down the hill and towards the airport. The two of us stand at the gates for a long time, even after they've disappeared from sight, not really knowing what to do. So, what did you want to do? I don't know. How about we call it a day? Do you want to go into the city? So going into the city is a better option than any. The bus stop, standing by the school gates like a mute sentinel, puts a strange idea in my mind. Do you want to head into town and look for a bookshop or something? We have the rest of the day free. It's a long shot, as Hanako doesn't like going into the city. I count the fact that we managed to get her out there even when it was so dark as a small miracle, but I genuinely want to spend time with her. Anyway, she's likely to just refuse and go back to... Okay. Really? Really? Let's go. I can't work out why Hanako has decided to agree with me, but I'm not about to ask her to change her mind.